Zimbabwe, once hailed as the breadbasket of Africa, has endured a tumultuous journey since gaining independence in 1980. Its trajectory from hope to economic collapse and political repression is a complex tale of leadership failures and policy missteps. This report analyzes key events and systemic issues shaping Zimbabwe's underdevelopment and crises. Zimbabwe gained independence in April 1980, with Robert Mugabe becoming the first prime minister. The country inherited a strong economy, robust infrastructure, and a well-developed agricultural sector. Mugabe's initial rhetoric emphasized reconciliation and nation-building, earning international goodwill. However, the early 1980s saw the Gukurahundi massacres, a brutal campaign against alleged dissidents in Matabeleland. Over 20,000 civilians were killed, marking the beginning of a culture of impunity. In 1987, Mugabe transitioned to executive president, centralizing power. The ruling ZANU-PF party entrenched itself through patronage, suppressing opposition. Economic mismanagement, socialist policies, and corruption led to inflation and mounting debt. The Economic Structural Adjustment Program in the 1990s aimed to liberalize the economy, but resulted in job losses and increased poverty. The Fast-Track Land Reform Program launched in 2000 was a turning point. It involved the violent seizure of white-owned commercial farms to address colonial-era land imbalances. Chaotic implementation led to agricultural collapse, food insecurity, and loss of export revenue. Western nations imposed sanctions in response to human rights abuses, isolating Zimbabwe. Hyperinflation peaked in 2008, rendering the Zimbabwean dollar virtually worthless. The 2008 elections were marred by violence. Opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai withdrew from the runoff. A government of national unity, formed in 2009, offered temporary relief. Despite the GNU, ZANU-PF maintained dominance, and human rights violations continued. The judiciary and security forces remained politicized, reinforcing impunity. In November 2017, Mugabe was ousted in a military coup. Emerson Mnangagwa assumed power, promising reform. However, Mnangagwa's leadership has largely mirrored his predecessors, with persistent crackdowns and political violence. The 2023 and 2025 elections were criticized for lacking transparency and fairness. Civil society organizations faced increased restrictions under new laws. The economy remains fragile, with inflation and currency instability continuing despite new currency introductions. Land reform compensation agreements have been signed, but agricultural productivity remains inconsistent. Zimbabwe's political landscape is characterized by a lack of accountability. Perpetrators rarely face justice. The judiciary is often compromised, and security forces act with impunity. Reports highlight ongoing abuses, arbitrary arrests, torture, and suppression of free speech and assembly. The government's response to criticism is often repressive, targeting opposition leaders, activists, and journalists. Zimbabwe's underdevelopment is rooted in corruption, with public funds misused and contracts awarded through nepotism. Poor governance, brain drain, and infrastructure decay further undermine development. While sanctions are often blamed, internal governance failures are the primary cause of economic woes. Despite decades of crisis, Zimbabweans remain resilient, with civil society and independent media advocating for change. For progress, transitional justice, addressing past atrocities like Gukurahundi, is essential. Institutional reform, economic stabilization, and human rights protection are crucial steps. Rebuilding trust with global partners through genuine reform is also necessary. Zimbabwe's journey is a cautionary tale of how liberation can devolve into repression and misgovernance. The entrenched culture of impunity remains a formidable barrier to progress. Yet, with committed leadership, civic engagement, and international support, Zimbabwe can still chart a path toward justice, development, and democracy.